I have the great pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, Laura Wilkinson. I love this lady. I got to meet with her a couple weeks ago. We got to film some videos, and she's just the sweetest, most humble, hardworking person. We probably walked 3 miles out in the Woodlands, and I kept asking her, do you need something? Do you need water? She's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I was getting tired. Jeff was worn out. We're like, are you sure you don't need it? Can we slow things down? She said, no, let's keep going. She's pretty amazing. And so I'm excited for what she's going to bring to this audience today. I'm going to share a couple of her accolades with you guys. She was 2005 World Champion Gold Medalist, 2004 World Cup Platform Gold Medalist, 2000 Olympic Platform Gold Medalist, first woman in history to earn all 3 titles on a platform, 1998 Goodwill Games Performer Gold Medalist, 1995 World Cup Bronze Medalist in Platform Synchro, 19 USA Diving National Titles, 3-time Olympian. Whoa, come on. 14-time, yeah, go ahead. 14-time USA Diving National Team member, 2-time NCAA champion, 8-time NCAA All-American honors. She started diving, get this, at age 15. That's amazing. So we're going to play a little video, and we're going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you. Good morning. It is so good to see all of you here today. Some of you were so cute when I walked in. I spoke at this breakfast about 15 years ago. It's hard to believe that now. One Peyton Riling ago, I spoke at this event. And many of you brought your pictures of you with me and the medal from 15 years ago, which is so cute. So let's recreate that afterward out in the hall. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you for having me here. I love talking and sharing my story, talking about my story, because I feel like sports and life are really so similar. You know, we have these defining moments, both in sports and life, where we kind of come to this point where we have to make a decision, right? We kind of have to choose if we're going to take that scary leap of faith in our lives and move forward. And that can be kind of terrifying. And that my very first kind of moment of truth like that happened to be on a diving platform. For those of you who aren't aware, the Olympics is coming this summer, so I'm going to educate you a little bit. So the diving platform, we also call it a tower. It is 10 meters, which if you're metrically challenged like myself, that's about 33 feet. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? Okay, well, so go up to the 4th floor here today after this and go peek out the window and imagine hurling your body, adding a couple of twists, a few flips, and no splash. Okay, now you're getting the idea. So the first time I saw the platform, I didn't think it looked too bad. So I ran right up there for my first jump. And the minute I stepped from that ladder onto that platform, my heart jumped right up into my throat. It was so much higher looking down from the top than it was looking up from the ground, right? But all my friends are down there watching me, and they've all done this before. But one peek over the edge to that water far, far below, all I could think of was how badly I was going to hurt myself. And you know, that jump is a lot like life. A lot of times in our lives, we say, I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try and read my Bible. I'm going to try and love people the way I should love them. I'm going to try and do these great big things and try to live this great life. But my coach, Kenny, who's over there, Kenny, will you wave to us? He's here. He's been my coach for 30 years. He's awesome. Everybody give Kenny a round of applause. Kenny has a great saying that he's been saying since I first stepped onto the pool deck. He says, Laura, you can't dip your toe in from the 10 meter to see if the water feels nice. You have to jump in with both feet. You can't try and dive. You either do it and commit to it, or you walk back down the ladder of shame, right? That is a lot like life. We have those moments. Are we going to try? Are we going to commit to it? Or are we going to walk back down that ladder? Well, that first time on the diving platform, I'd already made up my mind before I ever walked up that ladder that I was going to jump off. So I gathered every remaining ounce of courage that I had, and I slowly inched my way until I could feel my toes curl over the edge, and I looked at that water far, far below. I took a deep breath, and I let it out, and I extended my right foot, and I jumped in with both feet. And y'all, my stomach dropped. I felt like I was falling forever, but I couldn't even get a scream out. And then I finally hit the water, and underneath the water, all I could think was, That is the single coolest thing I have ever done in my whole life. And I wanted to run right back up there and do it again. You know, it was like the minute I hit the water, all those doubts and fears, they just washed away. So I did. I ran right back up that platform, right back up that ladder, stepped onto that platform, and those doubts and fears started creeping back in my head. It was, I realized the view and it was scary again. But the difference was this time, I knew I was going to enjoy the free fall. And that is how those moments are in our lives. When we come to this place where you have to make a scary decision, do I take this leap of faith into the darkness? I don't know where I'm going to end up. I don't know how I'm going to land. I don't know if I'm going to get hurt in the process. I don't know if people are going to walk away because I've made a fool of myself. There's all these questions that we don't have answers to, and that's scary. That unknown is so scary. But you can't dip your toe in to see if the water feels nice. It takes a commitment with both feet. And that's a hard thing to do in life. But we have the words of Jesus from John 16:33. He says, I say these things to you so that you may have peace. There will be tribulation in the world. That's like not an, there will be trouble. There will be difficulties in this world. But, the best but of the Bible, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. We have a great big God and Savior that we can trust through anything. And I tell you, every time I have taken a terrifying leap of faith, he's caught me. Didn't always go the way I wanted it to, but he has directed my path, and it has been absolutely incredible. My first real shot at the Olympic Games was in 2000, and I could see it laid out like some sports movie complete with soundtrack, right? Girl leaves college to pursue big dreams. She has a lesson learning setback, makes a big comeback, wins the Olympic gold. The crowd goes wild. Roll credits, right? That's what we see on TV. Well, that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. But the reality was I was at the University of Texas at the time. Any Longhorns in here? Like two, and then Kenny and Patty. All right. Okay. So I got a couple. I was on a full diving scholarship. I absolutely loved it. I was having the time of my life. I'd won 2 NCAA titles. I had all these accolades, that Terry listed off earlier. I finally figured out my major after switching it like 6 times. I had my people. I was like, things are good. Life is good here. But the Olympics were coming. And they were a year away, and I had wanted to be on the top of that Olympic podium since I saw Mary Lou Retton do that perfect 10 vault. And I was like, that's going to be me, right? But to do school at the same time and try to train and give it all the effort that I wanted, because this might be my only shot, I knew I was going to have to make a tough decision. Do I go home to train with Kenny, who I know can take me to the level I want to be at, or do I stay in this place where everything is going nice and easy and it feels good? That was my first big, scary leap, I think. Well, after the first time I jumped, my next big, scary leap. And I decided to leave my college scholarship to go home on a wing and a prayer and try to see if I could make that Olympic team. And, at the beginning, it seemed kind of easy. I left home with like 2 months rent saved up, or left my college dorm and had about 2 months rent saved up. My dad helped me find an agent, helped me get a sponsorship that was just enough to pay rent to be close enough to the pool to train. And I was like, man, this leap of faith stuff is kind of easy, right? Just all works out nice when you jump off with both feet. Well, let's see. A few months later, I ended up with a shattered right foot, a big purple cast, and 3 months to go before the Olympic trials. That was not part of my plan. We were at a meet in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we were doing kind of a typical meet warm-up where you do flips onto a mat. And I came out a little bit early of this one flip, and I hit both the balls of my feet on the wooden block that I was jumping off of. And Kenny piggybacked me over to the emergency room, where they told me it would hurt more and be more swollen if it was broken. Not wanting to think it was really bad, we just took the pair of crutches he gave me, and we're just hoping it was just a mild injury. But I was stuck there for 6 days in excruciating pain. And it wasn't until I came back here to the Woodlands and got it x-rayed, my doctor came in the room with tears in her eyes saying I could have reset it maybe when I'd seen it, but I had completely broken the 3 bones in the middle of my foot, one of the bones having lodged itself underneath, and already within a week had calcified to the 2 bones next to it. So it was like stuck there. She said it was going to require re-breaking everything, pinning it all back together, the surgery, and that would just take me out of trials. Not even an option. I said, is there a plan B? Is there like another option here at all? And she said, well, we can cast it the way it is, but I don't know if you'll be able to walk on that, let alone jump off of it. Well, we decided to cast it that way because that was the only chance. If I have to have surgery at some point, I'll have surgery at some point, but let's just see if we can do this. And man, that first week, that like mix of emotions, have you ever had something where it's like maybe work is going bad, your kids won't listen to you, all these things are going on all at once, and you just start to feel like the weight of the world on your shoulders. You know that feeling? And I felt that. It was like I left my college scholarship, I left my friends, I left everything good and right in my world, and this is my reward? God, how is this part of the plan? And I remember the weight of that just hitting me in my living room, and I just dropped my crutches and collapsed to my knees and just started screaming at God. I left everything because I thought this is what you called me to do. How is this what you called me to do? I was devastated. I felt like I was just watching my dreams and everything I had worked for just slip through my fingers. But it was in those moments on my living room floor that I realized, yes, I was called to do this, and I'm in the middle of this big storm, but he's right there with me in it. He never left me. He never forsook me. He was right there, and he said, I've called you to do this. You need to keep. And I was going to tell Kenny that. He barged into my apartment one morning at 6 a.m., banging on the door. And I remember opening the door, and he comes waving his finger in my face, and I'm hopping back on my one good foot, and he's like, hey, if you're going to do this, we can do it, but we've got to have a plan, and we've got to do all these things. And I just said, I'm in, let's do this. And he had one rule going forward, and that one rule was you can't look back and say, what if? You can't change what happened, it's done. What we can do is make a new plan going forward and give it everything we got. And he's super creative. He helped me think outside the box. We studied video. We clipped together like the best dives I had done, the order I was going to do them. I like memorized those things. When I was supposed to be in the pool training, obviously with my big purple cast, I couldn't get in the water. He would hold my crutches, and I would hop up that ladder on my one good foot and kind of shimmy my way out to the end. And I would go through all the actions of my dives. If I had to face forward to do the dive, I'd face forward. If I had to face backwards to do the dive, I'd face backwards. If there were people in the workout with me, he made me wait my turn in line, and I was pretending to dive. It was a little crazy, but we were doing all of these different things mentally that I'd maybe dabbled with before, but I was doing them for like 6 to 8 hours a day for months. And that gets a little tiring. That's a lot. It's totally different. And there came to a point where I was like, how is pretending to dive going to get me to the Olympics, let alone to the top of the podium? I started to feel stupid. I started to feel doubtful, really doubtful. The swimmers in the pool next to us started making fun of me. And I remember really wanting to give up for the first time. But what I didn't realize was what we had been doing that entire time, every day for hours on end. He was coaching me in my pretend diving, like we were fully committed to this. All of the divers that had been in the workouts with us had been watching. And they started to believe in what we were doing. And I had no idea we were making any kind of impression. I was just living in my old pressed, I was worried about what was coming. I couldn't see outside of my own bubble, but we were making an impression on all of those people around us. And those kids, they were coming up to me saying, hey, I really think you can do this. I believe in you. Like, don't give up. And it was kind of crazy because, and to anybody watching it probably looked nuts, but there would come a point where I would do a pretend entry in the water up on 10 meter, and they'd be like, that was amazing. I didn't see a drop of water. I'd give it a 10, And it probably looked insane to all the people watching, but it made me feel like I was part of the workout. It made me feel I was doing something that was worthwhile and wasn't alone. We talk about doing things for our community, and my community showed up for me. Those divers weren't my age. Most of them were like 8 to 18 years old, but they kept me going, and they gave me a reason to keep going, which is why I love now that I get to give back to those very same people, coaching athletes on mindset and things like that. But they kept me going and gave me a totally different outlook on things, so much so that 8 weeks and like 3 casts later, I finally got my chance to get back in the water. And I only had about 2.5 weeks to train physically before the Olympic trials, which is like 0 time. If you've ever heard an athlete's story, it takes months and years and all of this blood, sweat, and tears, right? I had 2 weeks in the water. But because we had been doing all of this other totally revolutionary mental training, I got my dives back off in 3 days and won the trials by over 40 points, making that Olympic team. And thank you. It was a wild ride. But what I didn't realize is that in the middle of all of that, God was equipping me to do something that I had dreamed of, that I thought he was taking my dreams away. But in that hardship, he was equipping me for what was coming next. 3 months later, I got my chance to go to the Sydney Olympics. And we were excited, terrified maybe a little bit, but it was a really cool experience. I find myself in the middle of the finals. I am seated 5th place. I am within points of the top 4 divers, but I was struggling to keep up. An amazing thing happened in the 3rd round. I was doing okay. I was like 25 points behind. It was kind of a big gap, but I was like, man, if you don't have to have the lead if you have the heart to come from behind. That's one of those quotes that I just love. And that just kind of stuck with me, like, I can do this. And I remember in the 3rd round, because crazy things happen at the Olympics, and all this mental prep equipped me for this. In the middle of the 3rd round, the batteries of my Discman died. Yes, this is back in the days of the Discman. Anybody have one of those? Yeah, I know you don't want to raise your hand. We're old. It's okay. So my Discman batteries died. And normally I'm like a good Girl Scout and I have everything packed and I'm ready to go. But I didn't pack an extra pair of batteries. So I like to listen to music to get into my zone, to be in that state of flow, to do the thing, and I didn't have it. So I did what anybody would do. I panicked, completely panicked. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And then I started laughing because, of course, after all that we had been through, I would forget batteries and I wouldn't be able to properly prepare for this. And I started laughing. And I remember looking at my hand because way back in the day in like a youth group somewhere, somebody had showed me a mustard seed. And I remember getting one. I had stuffed it in my Bible and I would put it in my hand from time to time and see how small that mustard seed was. And I remembered sitting there laughing with my headphones off in the middle of the Olympic Games. I'm looking at my hand and imagining that little mustard seed. Because in Matthew 17:20, Jesus says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say from this mountain, move from here to there, and it will be done. And I was like, surely I have a mustard seed worth of faith. That's not much. I've got to have that much. God, what you brought me through to get here to this moment, I need to have that faith that you're going to get me through this as well. And I ended up walking up to that dive, walking to the end, and I just knew. Because my faith wasn't in my ability. It wasn't in anything I did. It was that God had equipped me for this moment, and I knew it then. He'd equipped me to be there. And I remember raising my hands, and I just knew in that moment, this is going to be good. And it was one of the best dives I had done. It was just awesome. I felt good. I walk over to Kenny, and he's like, that was great. Now calm down. You've got 2 more dives, And so I'm just like excited. Okay, things are great. What I didn't realize was what was going to happen after that. I had hit my 3rd round, which launched me pretty far. But I was way behind the top 4 girls. But one by one, those girls missed their dives in that round, like really bad. I knew at that point I was in the hunt. I knew I must have pulled up and I was within fighting shot of a medal. What I didn't know is I had taken the lead at that point by less than a point or about a point, somewhere around there. In the 4th round, this was the action I broke my foot on. It was like you throw at the platform, so that's scary, right? Very scary. But I also had to stand and push off the ball of my foot where that broken bone was still lodged. So it was very painful. But through all of this, I've learned a lot of lessons. I've learned that it takes commitment. You have to jump in with both feet, right? You can't just dip your toe in. I've learned that I need community around me. It is not just about me. And I learned that when I put faith in front of my fear, when I have faith even as small as a mustard seed, I can have courage. And Kenny told me something before that 4th round dive that again changed everything. And all of the culmination of this stuff came together at once. I go over to Kenny because I still don't have headphones and I can't listen to my cool music and get ready. So I'm panicking because I have this hard, scary dive coming up. And I go over to Kenny because my Kenny will just know what to tell me. He always says exactly thing so that I'll know what to do. And I looked at him and he just says, do it for Hillary. And he walks away. And I'm like, how's that going to help me? Hillary was a teammate of ours that we lost in a car accident 3 years before. She was a really good friend of mine. I actually looked up to her as a gymnast. She was the first alternate on the 92 Olympic gymnastics team. And then she started diving the same year I did. And we came up together. And I'm like, why are you trying to make me cry in the middle of the Olympic final? Like, what are you doing? This is the most important monumental moment of my life. And you're trying to make me cry, but I trusted him because we had been through all of this together. And I knew that he wouldn't say something like that unless it was really important. So I went there. I am walking up to do my dive, and I'm like, I guess I got to think of Hillary right now. And so I started thinking about her. And I remembered a conversation we had one time when we went out to dinner. And she was the closest thing to an Olympic athlete I had ever been around. So I was asking her all the things. And I remember asking her, if you could go to Olympic trials for diving, like, would you go? Would you compete in that? What would that be like? And she said, I don't know if I could come so close again and not make it, but Laura, if anyone on our team could do it, it would be you. And in that moment, before this really hard, scary dive, I realized that this was also Hillary's dream. This was also the dream of every one of my teammates who didn't give up on me. In that moment, I realized that my dream of a gold medal was not just my dream. It was for everybody. It was all of ours collectively together. This was like a community thing. It was a group effort. And it gave me this different purpose that I hadn't had before. Again, there's God equipping me in the middle of this thing. And I remember walking to the end of the platform, and I turned around and I lifted up my hands, and I felt like I was 6 feet tall. And I was like, I gotta be all in. If I'm gonna hit the platform, I'm gonna hit the platform. What am I saving this for? I'm committed. I am doing this for people other than me, and I'm doing this for the Lord. This is no longer about me. And I had that courage in that moment that I was like, pain doesn't matter anymore. My faith is bigger than my fear. And I went after that thing like I never had before. And I ended up getting 9.5s, best one I'd done in a long time. And it was amazing. And I kept the lead, but we still had one dive left. And after that, Kenny was like, great dive. You still have one dive left. Calm down, go relax. And so I did. And I wasn't as nervous about the last dive because I knew it would be a good one. I just didn't know how good. But before that last dive, I just kind of had this whole moment of realizing I'm actually standing in this moment, living out my dream. I don't know whether I'm about to win or I'm about to get 5th place and not have any glory at all, but I'm living this dream. And the dream wasn't just about getting to the top of the podium. The dream was about becoming that champion that could be on the top of the podium. And I realized that as awesome as this is, and I did get to stand on the podium with this after, but I realized as awesome as this gold medal is, this only lasted 2 seconds, guys. Standing on the podium afterward, it lasted as long as the national anthem, and then you're done. And you're like, I worked all my life for this 2 seconds that we get on the podium, and then that's over. It's over. This medal is beautiful. If you look at it afterward, it is dented. I have dropped it. The gold plating is rubbing off because I let you guys wear it. The ribbon is starting to unravel. It's 24 years old. That fame lasted 2 seconds. That feeling lasted 2 seconds. But what I realize is it's not about the destination, and it's not even about the journey. It's about who you become on the journey. And when you trust God with all of those things, when you commit to what he's called you to, even when it's scary, when you trust the people around you and you bring that community in, when you have courage because you put your faith in front of your fear, he equips you for amazing things. I got a gold medal. I went to 2 other Olympics and didn't win anything. It didn't make them not worth pursuing. I don't regret that. I don't think they're a failure because God continued to grow me and equip me for great things. And he's going to do that in each one of you here. So please trust him ahead of any fear or anything that you're facing. Be there for your community, and they'll be there for you. And commit to what you're doing, and he will guide your steps to do great things for his kingdom and his purpose. Thank you. If you want to come wear my medal after, I will be out in the hallway hanging out. Thank you.